before I call up the interim director of the NAACP, I want to tell you the symbolism of why we picked this building. Cadillac Place. This building, the governor of the state of Michigan has an office in this building. We want to know from Governor Snyder, is he supportive of this type of legislation? And God forbid, if this legislation moves through the Michigan legislature, is Governor Snyder prepared to veto this legislation as he made the promise that if Arizona-type immigration legislation came across his desk, that he would also veto it? With that, I'd like to bring forth my friend and my colleague, Brother Donnell White, who's the interim director of the NAACP here for the show.
Let me say good afternoon to everyone and thank y'all for the courage and stepping up on this issue. The representative to lead as well. The NAACP, from a historic perspective, was a formation of individuals who knew right from wrong. It wasn't about black people forming an organization. It wasn't even one particular race, but it was people of good faith. So we as the NAACP, as people of good faith, we stand today with our brothers and sisters in the Arab community and proclaim that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We denounce these type of tactics that are divisive in our community, that seek to pull us apart rather than bring us together. I too firmly agree. We have too many issues in the state of Michigan: jobs, education, home foreclosure rates. We have too many issues to be focusing on these types of laws and proposed legislation that will continue to drive Michigan and being the #1 segregated region in this country. Today we come together as a community and say no more. The NAACP will stand with our brothers and sisters in the Arab community and the Muslim community as we move forward to say this is wrong, and we denounce this type of legislation as we move forward. Thank you.
We'll take any questions that you may have for us regarding this.
How far are you willing to take this fight, this legislation?
If this legislation is passed and signed by the governor, we will file a lawsuit from CAIR the very next day. We've already made the plans in other states. For instance, the first state in the country in which an anti-Sharia bill was put forth was in Oklahoma. And the day after that bill, the day after that ballot proposal initiative went into effect, we filed a lawsuit in federal court challenging that ballot proposal, that anti-Sharia ballot proposal. So we are willing that if this somehow happens, moves through the legislative process and signed by Governor Snyder, we will file a lawsuit against this bill.
What is the sentiment in Lansing? Are your fellow colleagues willing to sign on to this? Does it seem like it will move forward?
Over 40 Republicans signed on to the bill. That's why it's very astonishing. And again, as the only Muslim woman, and it's very, very public that I'm the only person of Muslim faith in the legislature, that they didn't come and discuss this with me. I can tell you without naming who it is, says to me, Rashida, well, you know, this is to help you because we don't want you to live in a state like Tehran, Iraq. I mean, this is misunderstanding complete, going after what we call fear-mongering. I mean, obviously, Sharia law would not be put in place here in this country. Obviously, this was all about people of color and people of different faiths. Because if you look at the 40-plus Republicans that signed on to this bill, they are not of different kinds of faiths and so forth. They are people that are totally believe in the fact that we seem to be the problem, instead of the fact that they are the problem because they can't pass budgets that give us quality education. They can't pass budgets that give access to higher education. They can't pass budgets that create more jobs. This does nothing except waste our time on an issue that has nothing to do with bringing Michigan back and making Michigan much more welcoming to people that we want more people and families to live here in this state. So I just think that you know, it is a responsibility of the people that elected these individuals to hold them accountable for fully understanding what this issue is about and whether or not this is a priority among the people that elected.
I guess from my perspective, you know, you got to look at it for what it's worth. You know, this is a Republican bill. This is not a Democratic bill. This is not a co-sponsored bill on both sides of the aisle. This is strictly their bill. And if you don't say that you're racist, then why are you co-sponsoring racist legislation? If you say you're not xenophobic, then why are you sponsoring xenophobic legislation? So if you claim to be Republican and if you claim to have co-sponsored this. And if you've read the bill, which I find out most people don't even read the bills that they sign on to, what you find out is that they're stuck. They're stuck with signing on to something that they know or have discovered is blatantly wrong. You know, I look at this and I ask myself, where do these people come from? What country do they think that they live on? And I wonder what Dave Ageman's view of the world would be like if he was on the Mayflower and if he had landed on Plymouth Rock and the Native Americans of this country had stood at the shoreline and said, here's our rules, here's our lines, and if you don't like it, not welcome. I wonder if he would have still come into the country, because the reality is he's the immigrant.
If I can make one other comment too, that most of these GOP reps that signed onto this bill are not from this part of the state, and they don't have Muslim constituents. So I could see, although I disagree, them using this politics of fear to rally up their base. However, some of these state reps, such as State Rep Marty Nolenberg, has a significant amount of Muslims in this district, and I know Muslims personally that have given to his campaign. Shame on him. He should step up and distance himself from this bill if he didn't read this bill, because he has mosques in his district, for God's sake, and he's going to sign on to some legislation like this. Shame on him. And that's why I have to call him up about this, because he claims to be a friend of the Muslim community. You don't sit back and tell me that you're my friend and then stab me in the back.
So we talked about the divorce mediation that seems to be a possible function. Can you talk about what specifically that entails?
Well, if you look at the bill, it mentions not just judicial proceedings, but it mentions arbiters, mediators, and administrative agencies that this bill would affect. So let's say you have a couple that's getting divorced, and then there's children involved, and they have mediation in terms of which parent will have the primary custody. Can the children go to religious school, religious services? The unclarity of this bill is as such that perhaps someone can put forth a legal challenge if through a mediator or arbiter, a Muslim parent is given primary custody when the other parent is not Muslim, and the parent wants to send the kid to the mosque or to some type of Islamic education. Potentially, under this bill, that other parent may be able to sue, blocking the rights of that parent, saying that Sharia is some type of foreign law system. That's the danger of this. Any other questions? We have not heard anything from the governor yet. Maybe you can get a comment from them.
Because only one state, Arizona, has fully passed something like this, whereas the other 22 states have had their bills die when the legislature has ended. What does this say about how Michigan may be fair in that regard?
Well, we're hoping that this bill doesn't make it out and doesn't pass. But see, Michigan has a lot of symbolism, because the whole national fervor about Sharia in America is focused on the state of Michigan, and in particular the city of Dearborn. We had Sharon Angle, who in Nevada ran against Harry Reid for his Senate seat. She said that Dearborn was under the Sharia law. We've had a bogus pastor, Terry Jones, coming in town. He's coming back to Lansing next month, talking about how Michigan is under Sharia. We've had Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, presidential hopeful, focusing on Sharia. So the primary concern isn't just about this bill passing, it's the fear-mongering that the state of Michigan has been made a focal point of a national fear-mongering, xenophobic, anti-Muslim campaign by right-wing bigots and white supremacists. And this is why we are standing out here calling out for what it is. It's racism, it's bigotry, and I put these same people who write this type of legislation, I put them in the same category with the former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan in Louisiana, David Duke. I'm calling it for what it is.
No, I have not. I did speak to one of the sponsors of the bill, co-sponsors of the bill, and it was very clear that he understood what the bill was about and still was willing to introduce it, even though he houses probably one of the most accomplished Muslim schools in the state of Michigan, and he still felt the need to go ahead and sign on to this, even though it would cast suspicion on his residents, and allow them to hesitate and really to be free to express their religion and so forth. No, I have not. I mean, he's a very difficult person to speak to in regards to. He's very, very strong on his beliefs. When the comment was made about talking about employment verification, and he said, well, immigrants bring in disease. He said that publicly in committee. Not only that, I sit on a committee with him, and he jokingly said, and he apologized for it later because I took offense, but I was putting an amendment forward towards a culturally integration program, and it was a program basically allowing people like my parents who needed just for a few months someone to help them integrate into the community. And it was a program that was very, very successful in the state of Michigan, especially in the refugee community. And I put an amendment to restore the partial funding, I believe. And I said, you know, I Representative Ejima, have come, you know, I'm a child of immigrants, came into this country, born here, born in this country. And he said, can I see your birth certificate? And laughed. He thought it was funny. I mean, for me, when Dave Ejima comes up to me to sign on to a bill, I cast suspicion. Because I will look at it 2, 3, 4 times. I will Google sections of the bill to see if he took it from a model bill in another state. That's what I do. I think my colleagues have known his reputation. They served with him for close to a year now, some of the new members, and they should know better to sign on to something like this. He has actually introduced legislation to get rid of birthright citizenship. I mean, he's introduced legislation. He's talked about putting children that go through foster care through some sort of e-verifying. These are children that don't have parents that we need as a country. I mean, what does that say about our values if we don't take care of these children? This is a person that has a reputation of introducing bills that are about going after people of color, people of different faiths, and racist bills. So my colleagues, the over 40 members, that was what's shocking to me. If it was just him and a few members, I probably would have never held this press conference. We probably would have not thought, well, you know, no big deal. But 40% of the legislature in the House of Representatives signed on to this bill. That's scary.
What's the point of talking to someone who didn't even write the bill? I mean, the fact of the matter is, he didn't wake up one day, get onto a computer and start typing away. The fact is, he got on the computer, checked his email, there was the bill. And he ran it to the House of Representatives and said, put this into the form where I can go get the co-sponsorships on. Now, I bet you if you invited Dave Ejima to come to Dearborn, to go to Oakland County, to travel anywhere throughout Southeast Michigan, he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it because what that would allow him to do is fully understand what the Arab community is about, what the Muslim community is about, and what cultural diversity and understanding is about. So what's the point of sitting down and talking to someone who's so narrow and closed-minded?
I want media, I want you to look into where he got this model immoral legislation from, the American Public Policy Alliance, written by David Yerushalmi. David Yerushalmi, and David Yerushalmi claims it on his website, and you can see the Anti-Sharia policy that's on the American Public Policy Alliance website. This is exactly where he got this legislation from.
Yeah, if this representative is, as you say, guilty of passing and proposing bigoted laws, is there some sort of censure for someone like that? Because that would be against the U.S. Constitution, right?
Absolutely. I mean, many of the bills that he introduced, I think probably 99% of them probably can be legally challenged. But why would we want to spend the resources in the state of Michigan to have people sue our state over these bills? The point is to not sign on to bills like this. When you see 43 of my colleagues, a lot of them I respect. A lot of them I work on a number of issues, including education, including job creation, a number of issues that are important to our state. And for them to just blatantly sign on to something like this, I pause and think, well, do they have a problem with American Muslims in Michigan? And I worry a bit. Again, having that conversation with one of the co-sponsors who, again, has a very predominantly, very, very well-accomplished Muslim community that have started schools, that have started big businesses without naming them, pharmaceutical businesses and so forth in his community. I'm shocked that he signed on it because I told him, hey, I know you signed on to this. It's called foreign law, but I want you to know I know Sharia. Oh, he goes, no, I know about it. No, I know. And I'm just
propose legislation like this? They're constantly creating suspicion over Islam. Is that because they think it benefits them? At times it may sway in voters. What is that?
Absolutely. This is all politically motivated. If you look at Ajamon, look at the bills he's introduced. Have nothing to do with job creation. It has to do with people of color, brown people, people with accents, people that came into this country, people that might have been here generations, people of different faiths. He has an issue of people different from him. You know, I'm appalled because I keep saying this, but I'm shocked. As a member of the state legislature, I'm completely shocked because our state lost population. No other state did. We have, I think, been the victim of the economic downturn more than any other state. We are still suffering. And instead of dealing with those core issues, we're dealing with these kinds of so-called social issues that have nothing to do with getting their job done, to doing what they were elected to do. This is the easy way. This is lazy to me. Lazy. To me, I could go introduce all kinds of things, moratoriums on things, all kinds of things that I know could not be passed, could not get bipartisan support, that I know might not even work for our state. I don't focus on it because that's a lazy approach to go ahead and send a press release on something that he knows that will get legally challenges over, because he can go issue and say, look, I'm stopping foreign law by implementing it. There is no movement in Michigan that he would have to react to introduce this bill. It's lazy. It's complete laziness.
And also, if you do your homework, of the 20 plus states in which anti-Sharia legislation has been introduced, all of it has been by Tea Party acolytes within the GOP. In every single state, there are people who have affiliated themselves with the Tea Party that have taken this as a political strategy to use the immigration issue and undocumented workers, to use Muslims and the so-called Sharia scare as a way of getting cheap political points to rally up their base. This is very calculated by a certain segment within the GOP, and we would hope that the GOP national leadership, not just in Michigan, would take a stand against this bigotry and this xenophobia, because if they don't, I see them as being complicit in the racism, in the xenophobia, and in the Islamophobia.
And to add to that, let me just say this. The Republican strategy is very clear. Scare people. Teach them how to hate. Then teach them how to organize, well-fund their operations, and then send them off into the world to inject fear and hatred amongst their base, to energize their base to turn out for election. The question we have as people of color is, are we willing to fight back by going out and voting and pushing back on these people that are injecting so much hatred towards our community? That's the political question that we have to answer.
Thank you all.